Social media giant Meta has been ordered by a court in the United States to pay more than $500 million to address harms to young people caused by its platforms. Now, this is the largest fine that Meta has ever faced over child safety, and it's the result of a landmark trial that the tech giant lost in March of this year. Joining us now is Evan Light, Associate Professor at the University of Toronto's Faculty of Information. Professor, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start with this fine, because taken with a previous penalty, which was nearly $400, Meta is facing fines of almost $1 billion. Now, we might say that's a drop in the bucket for a company that is valued at over $1.5 trillion, but how are you viewing the significance of this outcome?
Oh, well, I think it's pretty massive. This is the biggest fine, as you mentioned, that they've faced. $1 billion. Their annual profit is about $60 billion, so it's significant. But even more so for me, the big significance is what the money is intended to do. In previous rulings, so I think back in June, perhaps, maybe April, Meta was fined, I think $335 million in Louisiana, in a similar case, but in that case, it was for facilitating child sex trafficking. They were recently fined about $1.5 million in California for creating addictive products. But in this case, in New Mexico, they've been fined, as you mentioned, between two different fines, but in the same court case, they have been fined about $1 billion US. And in this case, this new fine of $567 million is to create a fund to provide services to treat child or teen mental health issues in the state of New Mexico for 5 years. So they're using, in this court case, they use Meta's internal documents and expert testimony to show that Meta creates addictive, harmful products on purpose, and even more so that this plays out negatively in society. The large amount of this money is for Meta having created what they call a public nuisance. So they're recognizing that the mental health issues that are connected to social media use aren't just restricted to life online, but that they play out in society as a whole, and that this is harmful, and that Meta does this on purpose, and they should be responsible for fixing it.
In fact, the case is interesting. The judge used that analogy of a factory that's polluting against them, really. It's something that Meta's counsel brought up. What should we as consumers take away from this? You know, for context, and I know you gave some of that, this was a nearly 7-week-long trial in New Mexico. It ended in March with the jury saying that Meta knowingly harmed children's mental health and that it concealed what it knew about child sexual exploitation on its platforms. Now, these are platforms that include Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. Many of us use these apps every single day. So how might rulings like this one change the way we interact with these platforms?
I think it provides an important precedent, maybe not in Canada in terms of legal precedent, because our legal system doesn't interact with the US one that way. But it provides a model of what other places can do. So far, countries have been largely resistant to actually regulating social media. Our government has proposed a bill that would maybe do this in a couple of years. But in this case, New Mexico as a state is saying, you know what, we actually need to do something urgently, and we're going to do it now. And it's important, I think, that also that this case was the state of New Mexico, that the Attorney General of New Mexico suing Meta. This case started in December 2023. It wasn't an individual saying this has been done to me. This was the state saying, we as the state which has to take care of our citizens thinks this is wrong, and we're going to do something about it. So I think it provides a model that other places can work off of. It also provides a model of urgency that, for instance, in the Canadian case, maybe the government shouldn't sit around for a year and a half, probably more likely 3 or 4 years, to have a regulator that can do something like this on a federal level. That something should be done soon, and in a direct way that affects the social media companies. That doesn't put the responsibility onto the individuals, the children. It puts the responsibilities completely on Meta.
Yeah, that's an interesting and important distinction. These were state prosecutors, which shows, really the government taking matters into their own hands. Meta has said that they will appeal this ruling, I should say, and this is not the only lawsuit that Meta is fighting, like you pointed out off the top. Where we're also seeing attempts, in terms of protections, we're seeing attempts at social media bans for young people. Do you have thoughts about how effective those are? What should our policy approach be?
Personally, I think social media bans would be a harmful thing. You have various kids on social media who use social media for positive ways to find connection online, to support differences. Um, I don't think their use of social media itself is terribly harmful. It's the product itself that is. And so I think when we think about social media bans or providing an age restriction on social media, we're saying that, it's okay for these things to be harmful. You just have to be old enough for them to harm you. And that's wrong. You shouldn't have to be 16 to be exploited online. It should be wrong or illegal, period. And so I think that age verification or social media bans takes the responsibility away from social media, and it puts them on to kids, rather than making companies responsible for what they do.
Very interesting. Now, the other reason that Meta has been in the headlines this week is because of a disclosure that it too had an AI model go rogue. Now, which is to say, it broke out of its testing environment, it gained access to the internet, and it hacked or broke into another company. Now, this comes after OpenAI and Anthropic reported similar instances. What should we make of these disclosures?
I'm not sure yet. There's been so little real transparency on the way that these companies and their AI models operate that I'm torn between thinking that this is marketing, to show that, our AI models are so complex that we can't control them, or that it's reality. I really don't know which one it is. I think it does speak to the fact that still these same companies are completely unregulated, and that they have the potential for doing great harm, whether it's to seeing mental health in the case of Meta, or whether it's to hacking parts of the internet that should be secure. Um, so yeah, I really don't know, but I think it speaks to the fact that we need actual regulation and transparency from companies like OpenAI and Meta.
Let me press you on that then, because do you have real concerns? You're someone who follows this and probably understands this much more than the rest of us. Do you have concerns that this technology is getting away from us? Do these companies have sufficient oversight? There's been criticism, speaking of the social media part of it, there's been criticism that it's taken us 15, 20 years for regulators to start curbing these harmful practices by social media platforms. Are we likely to apply any of those lessons to AI?
I I would hope so, but I kind of doubt it. Instead, I mean, our federal government has committed to rolling out massive infrastructure in support of AI. We have spoken federally a bit about the need to regulate AI, but we have really handicapped ourselves in doing so. We had a bill that almost came forward a couple of years ago before the Trudeau government fell, um, or before Trudeau resigned, rather. And yeah, we've attempted, but not really made solid attempts at regulating AI in Canada. Um, Elsewhere in the EU, they have the EU Artificial Intelligence Act that regulates AI to a certain extent. But I think globally we've failed pretty massively, and that we need to step up.
All right, Evan, we'll leave it there, but thank you. It's very helpful to have you really explain some of these things for us.
My pleasure.
That is U of T Associate Professor Evan Light.